I had to ask this question on AMA Vid. How does Atala Prism bring value to Cardano? Are there chain metrics from the use of Atala Prism that can be identified in the Cardano blockchain? So it looks like metadata with hashes when you do batch drops of people. And generally speaking, when you're talking about mass registration of millions of people, that is done as a roll-up of people in some sort of data structure that's authenticated. And you can go as arbitrarily large as you want. You can only have a single hash for that if you trust the source to possess that data. But you're always able to verify if you construct the snippets off-chain correctly. Now, as an individual, so the self-sovereign identity component, every identity would relate to a transaction. So it's either many to one or one to one, or it could be even many to many, just depending on the way you use Atala Prism. And if you have the actual DID in the memory or just a hash representation of it as an integrity check of the DID. So in practice, the integrity check makes a lot of sense because when you have like 5 million people, like the Ethiopia deal, or 8 million people, like the Boost Dish deal, that's 13 million people, 13 million transactions. Why? It just bloat the network. No, and these are centralized services at the end of the day. You just want to know as an employer that the credential you're given with the proof checks out and hasn't been tampered with. The blockchain component is the trusted bulletin board to say it's not been tampered with. So you'll see some hashes in the chain, and they're just hashes, and those are usually fidelity checks for some file, an integrity check for some file. But because their centralized systems run off-chain, that's as far as you can take them. Over time, as peer-to-peer identity goes, then you're actually going to see registered DIDs, not just hashes, because you're using it as the key server, like the MIT key server for PGP or these things, the public-private key. You see that identifier and a hash of the DID document that's associated with it, which is, and then you can see the web of trust form around that. That's a different way of using Prism. And how does it value Cardano? Well, it values, I see, in 3 ways. One is user acquisition, because once they have a DID, they're usually in some form of wallet infrastructure, which is Cardano. Great. 13 million customers, great. Let's get them into the family, get them using dApps at some point. It's a long road, but we'll get them there. And you can always scale because it's B2B2C play. 2, once you have identity in the system, then you're able to do compliance. And if you can do compliance, then suddenly you can do regulated activities. For example, taking technology like what Acuant has with AML KYC for AML KYC with a DID, then you could talk about one-click exchange creation. So you talk about frictionless use of cryptocurrencies for consumers. It would be really cool if I just boot up my wallet. Oh, I need to trade that. They click a button and they're using Coinbase. Account auto creates. No compliance check, no wait. It just boom, it's frictionless, and you have the same interface in the wallet or things like that. Or the third area is regulated dApps. So what if you have a DEX, but you say to use this DEX, there's an entry condition where you have to have a DID with a whitelisted KYCML. So it's still decentralized trading and order books and no custodial risk or counterparty risk or things like that. But it is regulated at the entry and exit points from saying that somebody has to be accountable for knowing who the users are. That's an example of regulated dApp. That's not something the space commonly does today, but as regulation comes, it's going to be something people begin exploring. And we get all 3 for free with Prism. Mass B2B2C, customer acquisition, you get that cream filling in the middle, and then you get obviously the regulated dApps. So a lot of automation of regulation, and a lot of things about building an identity system, super important in the overall usability of the system. The other thing is that identity is key for all credit relationships. You have to know the person. You don't necessarily have to know the name of the person or the physical real identity of the person, but you need some object that's Sybil resistant, that is able to have enough reputation weight behind it that the value of burning the reputation is less than the value of cheating you. You see, and so as long as you have a system like that, you can have anonymous lending, but safe lending and create credit metrics and scores. And that's what we're basically building. So identity is key. It's one of the bedrocks, one of the foundational pillars of a cryptocurrency working properly. By the way, all our critics never mention that. 13 million people. It's as if it doesn't exist. Put it in the book. Maybe people like reading it. Who knows?